So if you had $1,000 in the golden year, 2016, you could pay most of your rent, you could eat out a bunch, and you could still feel like you were getting ahead at life. But fast forward to what is now coming 2026, $1,000 feels like it disappears the second that you look at it the wrong way. But is that actually true? Or are we all just super nostalgic and terminally online and bad at math? Well, today we're going to walk through the real numbers from 2015 versus 2025. We're going to see wages, rent, groceries, fast food, streaming services, and yes, even new mortgages to see what $1,000 really buys you now versus what it did back then. And I mean, yeah, it's a little grim, but not all hope is lost. Let's jump right into it. So let's start with the boring but crucial part, which is inflation, because technically, I guess $1,000 can be calculated to the exact value it holds today versus back then. But according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, $1 in 2015 has the same purchasing power as about $1.37 in 2025. So that's roughly a 37% increase in 10 years. So if you really wanted to do an exact fair comparison in this video, well, $1,000 in 2015 is about $1,370 in 2025. So in other words, if your income has not gone up at least 37% since 2015, you have essentially got a pay cut since then. So let's leave that on screen for now, because we're going to be coming back to that. Keep that number in your head as we go through everything. So the first question that pops up is, was it easier to make $1,000 back then or now? Which seems kind of like it's a self-answering question seeing the inflation numbers, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks median usual weekly earnings for full-time workers. So in 2015, the median full-time worker was making somewhere by the low 800s per week. By 2025, that has now risen to the low 1,200s per week, according to the BLS earnings summary for wage trackers, whatever. But let's keep the math real simple. So roughly $800 a week in 2015 and roughly $1,200 a week in 2025. So to earn $1,000 back in 2015, if we divide 1,000 by 800, it take about 1.25 weeks of work. But in 2025, it takes about 0.8 weeks of work. So on paper, it's actually faster to earn $1,000 now than it was in 2015. So this is the part where the government and everyone says, do you see, wages are up? But remember, prices didn't just go up 37% for fun. In a lot of categories, they blew way past that. So yes, it's easier to earn $1,000 now, but also way easier to watch it just be gone like Thanos snap. So now let's talk about everyone's favorite horror genre, rent. Zillow's rental index shows that the typical US rent was around $1,350 a month in early 2015, so close enough to the date we're shooting for. But fast forward to now, and the same data compiled from Zillow rent indexes shows that the annual typical rent cost for housing in the US is at about $2,075 a month in early 2025. So let's just do a straight comparison right there. 2015, $1,350. 2025, $2,075. So that's roughly a 54% increase in rent. So let's drop in $1,000 in each year here, right? So $1,000 covered about 74% of the average rent back then. But today, $1,000 covers about 48% of the average rent. So in 2015, a chunk of $1,000 almost paid your entire month's rent. But in 2025, that same $1,000, you need two of those same $1,000 chunks to cover the month's rent. Now, groceries. There's a local news station in North Carolina that did a great comparison earlier this year. They bought the same basket of basic items, bread, milk, meat, etc. in April of 2025, and they did it again in April of 2025 using BLS price data. In 2015, that basket cost them about $20.07. In 2025, the same basket, well, I guess technically not the same, but the same items was $36.73. So that's about an 83% increase for the exact same food. So what does $1,000 get you? In 2015, $1,000 gets you 49 baskets of groceries. That's 49 people, 49 tribes that you're feeding the village of. In 2025, $1,000 gets you 27 baskets. So almost half the amount of families that you were providing in your tribe and your village. But with the same $1,000, you're looking at roughly a 45% fewer grocery trips for the same stuff. So up until now, if you've been following, things have been really concerning. But right now, it's about to get like clown world level concerning comedic hysterical. Okay. So, a study by Finance Buzz looked at menu prices at major fast food chains between 2014 and 2024 and found that the average prices rose about 60%, almost double the overall inflation rate. You know those fast food chains we all go to? McDonald's, Chipotle, Taco Bell, and Popeyes? Well, they were the worst offenders, with some items basically doubling in price. McDonald's will be our control in this experiment, unfortunately, but McDonald's itself released data showing that a Big Mac, but just a burger, in 2019 costed $4.39, and in 2024 it cost $5.29. So we take that into account, as well as some other analysis that exists out there. The US average Big Mac is around $5.70 to $5.80 in 2024, which is roughly 50% higher than it was a decade ago when it was in the mid $3 to $4 range. But keep in mind, that's just a sandwich. The Big Mac meal went from $7.29 in 2019 to $9.29 in 2024, a 27% jump in just 5 years. So that's our control. We're going to leave that. So we're going to move on to Chipotle, the $21 receipt that haunts the internet. A Chipotle customer found a 2015 receipt from Chicago. It was 2 chicken bowls and a chicken burrito with guac. So in 2015, the total for that was $21.45. But the same order in 2025 at the exact same location was $30.80. So that's a 45%-ish increase over the exact same time. And today, similar reports and price analysis show Chipotle's main items to be up around 70 to 75% since the mid-2010s, depending on the location. Most of this is very location heavy, but Chipotle does count in the location category as well. So other chains that we want to look at is Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out. So Finance Buzz and other price studies show Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out and other big names have seen menu prices jump 50 to 80% over the decade. Again, well above the general inflation number of 37%. So what does $1,000 buy you in fast food? Well, back then, you could feed a small army for $1,000, and I'm not exaggerating. Okay, I'm exaggerating. But $1,000 in fast food back then, you could sponsor a mid-sized youth group outing for once a month or something. But if we just use a rough 60% average price increase, that means your $1,000 fast food budget today buys about what $625 would have bought you in 2015. Now, food, you can argue that, you have to pay it. We have to eat every day. There's nothing we can do about it. And I guess you could cook at home and you wouldn't have to pay it, but you still got to pay groceries, right? But let's talk about the tax that we all willingly pay. We shut up and take my money to these huge companies, streaming and subscriptions. So Netflix, in 2015, Netflix raised the price of its standard plan to $9.99 a month for new customers, or just $10. But today, as of 2025, Netflix's own pricing page shows that standard with ads now is $8 a month. Standard with no ads, which was $10, is now $18. And the premium one, which I don't even know what services they offer there, is $25 a month. So if we do that quick calculation, $1,000 in 2015 gets you 10 months of standard Netflix. In 2025, $1,000 gets you 55 months of standard Netflix. So for the same $1,000, you lost almost half of your Netflix time. Not to mention that there's a premium version now, and if you wanted to size down, you would see ads now. That's so annoying, but whatever. Let's move on to Spotify. So back in 2015, Spotify Premium was worth $10 a month, and that was, the usual monthly cost like Netflix was as well. Now, Spotify's US Premium Individual is $12 a month after the price hikes like a year ago or something like that. So that's not very different. $1,000 in 2015 gets you 100 months of Spotify Premium, and today it gets you about 83. So that hasn't exploded as much as the others, but it's still something to keep in mind because I believe that there's still ads on there, but correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Now, another big tax that we can willingly pay, and this one is free, don't worry, is if you hit that subscribe button and hit the like button down below. I feel weird always asking for that, but it helps out the channel a lot every time you subscribe or like, or even leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought, whether it's positive or negative. And I like reading them and I like interacting with you all to see that there's actually real people on the other side of my camera. So let me know what you thought, and let's move on to the next big one: interest rates and mortgages. So here is where we can look at our $1,000 and laugh because $1,000 could get us basically nothing then and now. But we can make more sense of it when we see the cost of debt. So if we see mortgage rates, when it skewed a lot because of what happened during 2020 and the pandemic. But back in 2015, the average mortgage rate, fixed mortgage rate, was about 4% in 2015. But today in 2025, very skewed because of the whole pandemic situation I kind of addressed. It's around 6.7%. And yes, it does fluctuate a lot over the course of a year, so I can't really pinpoint an exact one. But let's just see a basic. In 2015, it was 4%. In 2025, it's about 6.7%. So that doesn't sound like a huge jump, but on a 30-year mortgage, I mean, it's brutal. We're talking about maybe even $1,000 more a month. You see, monthly payments got to factor in all those costs. So the typical monthly mortgage payment on new loans went from about 1,100 in 2020 to about 2,200 in 2024. So that's almost doubling in just what, 4 years? 4 years? So by 2025, the median monthly payment for new buyers is around 2,260, assuming a 20% down payment and a home price of around 435,000. Even though our $1,000 will barely make a dent in the whole mortgage, but let's just dump that in there. In 2015, with lower rates and lower home prices, $1,000 comfortably covered most of a typical payment, including insurance and everything. But in 2025, $1,000 covers less than half of an average new buyer's mortgage payment. Now, I remember in the beginning of the video when I told you that not everything is grim, that there is still hope. There is. Not everything is worse, and we're going to go through something that's actually a little better right now to, make it a little lighthearted in here. I feel a little sad from hearing all that. But in the mid 2010s, the average savings account interest rate was about 0.06%. It's basically nothing. But after rate hikes and many people online were made aware of high yield savings account, well, the average high yield savings account, of course, but the average savings account has paid anywhere from 4 to 5% interest in 2023 to 2024. All that despite the national averages is under 1%. So in 2015, $1,000 in your typical high yield savings account, or just savings account, I guess, back then, would make you nothing, basically nothing. But in 2025, $1,000 in a good high yield savings account can actually earn you $40 to $50 a year in interest. Well, that's not life changing. Well, of course it's not. But does it be 0.06%? I mean, I'll take that any day. So a quick recap of what we saw with $1,000 in 2015 versus 2025 is earning it. Yes, $1,000 is easier to earn now. Wages are up 40 to 50%, depending on your location. Of course, each place has its own things to measure. Now, spending $1,000, yeah, that is so much easier to do as well. Your rent is up about 50% since 2015. So your $1,000 went from covering 3/4 of a typical rent to about half. Groceries, yep, it can get eaten up by that as well. As we said, the example where it's about 83% groceries, yeah, it can get eaten up as well with our example with that you get 45% fewer trips. Fast food prices are up 6% on average since 2014, and some items have basically doubled. Streaming, well, yeah, we saw that Netflix is a huge gap, but Spotify isn't. I think that might have to do with the fact that Netflix needs to create actual film content, so they need to raise their prices more than Spotify, that's just music streaming and maybe not as capital intensive. Now, borrowing money is also harder because, like we said, 30-year mortgage rates back then were about 4%. Today, they're about 6.7%. So is $1,000 worse off in 2025? Yes, in terms of what it buys you, especially for housing, fast food, and mortgage rates. But no, in the sense of how easy it is to earn it. Also, with the high yield savings account, there's so much more options to make your money work for you now. So $1,000 can go further now, but $1,000 is also easier to make. But $1,000 is also easier to get sucked away. If you found this breakdown helpful, remember to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment with what $1,000 used to buy you. Maybe what's a $1,000 purchase that you made back then that you were like, I can't believe I'm spending $1,000 on, that today it's worth like 2,000. I don't know. Just give me an example down in the comments. I'm curious to know. But I'm Jason. This is Jason AQ. And more valuable than $1,000 is Jesus Christ and the salvation of your soul. Watch these videos too. See y'all later. Bye-bye.